Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight for Voice to the Voiceless. And this episode is called The Season of Togetherness. It's a follow up on the Ageism podcast I did a couple of weeks ago, about 3 months ago. And I read a couple of things on Facebook that really stood out to me, and I want to read them to you. My heart didn't break when the doctors told me my husband Frank was gone. It didn't break when I had to sell the house we lived in for 40 years because the stairs were getting too steep. No, my heart broke on a Tuesday afternoon staring at a blue text bubble on an iPhone screen. My name is Margaret. I am 76 years old, living in a quiet condo in the suburbs of Chicago. And I want to tell you about the Christmas that almost broke me. Not because of a tragedy, but because of a sentence that haunts thousands of seniors across America right now. You can swing by later for dessert if you want. It wasn't said with malice. There was no screaming, just a text message from my daughter Jessica, a busy modern mom, a woman juggling a corporate job, two teenagers, and a mortgage. But those words hit me harder than the winter winds off the lake. For 30 years, Christmas at our house was a beautiful disaster. It was the Super Bowl of domestic life, wrapping paper knee deep in the living room, Frank trying to carve a turkey that always was slightly dry, kids screaming, the smell of cinnamon, and the sight of panic. I was the conductor of that orchestra. I was the center of the gravity. But time is a thief. It steals your noise, then it steals your purpose. Frank passed. The kids moved to different states. The grandkids grew into teenagers who communicate mostly in emojis. And suddenly, my house was spotless, quiet, dead quiet. This past year, I waited for the plan. You know the feeling. Checking your phone every hour, hoping for the invite. Not just an invite, but a need. I wanted to be needed. Finally, a text from Jessica. What time? Finally, I text Jessica. I text her. What time should I come over on the 25th? Do you need me to bring the sweet potato casserole? Three dots bubbled on the screen. Then the reply. Hey, Ma. We're actually going to keep the morning very low key. Just us and the kids in pajamas opening gifts. We're exhausted. But you can swing by later for dessert if you want to. Maybe around 4 o'clock. No pressure. I sat in my kitchen, the silence ringing in my ears. Low key, just us, if you want. In modern America, we have become obsessed with the nuclear family. The mom, the dad, the kids, everyone else, even the people who raised you, become an accessory, an add on. I felt like an afterthought. I felt like a guest. I typed back, "That sounds perfect. See you at 4." Because that's what mothers do. We don't want to be burdens. We don't want to be the needy in laws. We swallow the lump in the throat and we use an exclamation point to hide the hurt. Christmas morning came. I woke up at 6 a.m. out of habit. My body remembered the rush of putting the casserole in the oven. My hands remembered the weight of a stocking. But there was nothing to do. I made a single cup of coffee. I turned on the TV to watch the parade in New York. I saw the crowds, the families, the people holding signs saying, "Hi, Mom." I sat in my pristine living room, surrounded by tasteful decorations that no one would see, and I wept. I didn't cry because I was alone. I cried because I was optional. Around noon, I couldn't take the silence. I put my coat on and drove. I drove past the houses in the neighborhood. I saw the driveways packed with cars. I saw the silhouettes in windows, grandmas holding babies, dads wrestling with dogs. I realized something terrifying about aging in this country. We trade community for independence, and we end up with isolation. I parked at a gas station just to hear a human voice. The cashier, a young man with piercings and a tired smile, said, "Merry Christmas." I almost hugged him. "Merry Christmas," I said. "I'm going to see my grandkids later." I needed to say it out loud to make it real. When 4 o'clock finally arrived, I knocked on Jessica's door. It opened to a blast of heat and noise, the smell of roasting meat, and the sound of football on the screen. "Grandma." The kids looked up from their iPads for a brief second before diving back into their digital worlds. Jessica hugged me, smelling like wine and expensive perfume. "Mom, you made it. Grab a plate. There are leftovers on the counter." I smiled. I ate the cold turkey. I watched them laugh at inside jokes I wasn't a part of. I was there, but I wasn't there. I was a spectator in the life I helped create. On the drive home that night, on the icy roads, the truth settled in my bones. It's a hard truth, one that might make you uncomfortable, but I needed to say it. Being loved is not the same as being included. My daughter loves me. I know she does. She would manage my health care if I got sick. She would fight for me. But she forgot that I am a person who needs to belong, not just a problem to be managed or box to be checked on a holiday schedule. The lesson for the modern family. If you are grown children reading this, please listen. So if you're grown children listening to this, please listen as I read this. Your parents know you are busy. We know the economy is hard. We know you are tired from working 50-hour weeks. We know you just want to relax in your pajamas. but we are fading. Our world is shrinking every day. We lose friends, we lose mobility, we lose reverence. The only thing that makes us feel tethered to this earth is you. When you say, come over later, you are saying you are a part of the day, but not the priority. We don't want fancy gifts. We don't need perfectly hosted dinners. We want to see the messy hair in the morning. We want to help pick up the wrapping paper. We want to be a part of the chaos, not a visitor to the cleanup. So please, this year, don't just fit us in. Don't schedule us between nap time and the Netflix binge. Call us first. Invite us early. Make space for us at the table before the food gets cold. Because one day, the phone won't ring. The house will be empty. And you will realize that the greatest gift wasn't under the tree. It was the person sitting quietly on the couch, just happy to be witnessing your life. Don't wait until we are a memory to treat us like a priority. I hope that makes some of us think in this season of holidays and gatherings. How do we treat the seasoned people in our lives? The mothers, the fathers, the grandmothers, grandfathers. How do we treat them? You know, yeah, it's really sad that so many of us go unnoticed. You know, that was really a sad story. Um, when I was growing up, wow, I remember Christmases and Thanksgivings and I see it differently now because it's been like that. It was like that. We would go visit my grandparents, but they were not at the house with us. It was not families opening gifts and presents under the tree. It was like later in the day after all of that was done. It was dinner together. But but some of us don't have that. There are so many individuals out here living alone. Some don't have food, family, and some do have food and family, but they don't have anybody to spend it with. And it's sad when you have family, and people just ignore you. As of 2023, there were approximately 59.3 million senior citizens. And when I say senior citizens, I mean 65 and older here in the United States. That's 17, almost 18% of the population. A lot of that is because we have become baby boomers. It was the baby boomer generation. It's projected that in the year 2050, there will be 82 million seniors. In 2022, 31.9 million were women and 25.9 million were men, all over the age of 65. Most of our seniors are in California or in Florida. The warmer weather because of the aching of the bones, and I get it. I challenge this population to invite a senior to dinner. Just invite them to dinner or take dinner to them. Because loneliness amongst our senior citizen is widespread, and most of it's linked to they've lost their spouses, they lose their friends, reduced mobility. We can't get around as much. Some of us, some of us have chronic illnesses. So it's a significant increase in the risk of physical and mental health problems, that the seasoned population has. And the strategy to combat this is by including them in social and community activities. Some of us are not as tech savvy as others. So yeah, we get the FaceTime and all of that, but it is not the same as having a human present in the room, a human touch. Their whole seniors have, their whole worlds have changed because yeah, we worked, we become retired, kids move away. We get all of that, you know. So there becomes barriers sometimes for us coming to places or people. You know, we start to lose our hearing, we start to lose our sight, and it makes it harder to participate. Illnesses makes it harder, lack of transportation, and we become so isolated. And that isolation links to high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, weakened immune system, anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, and sometimes premature death. Broken heart. It's dying from a broken heart. Dying from loneliness. It's real. It's real. Help the seasoned people in your community, in your family. And I use the term seasoned because we've lived through phases of life just like trees, plants. We've had our spring, we've had our summer, we've had our fall, and now we're in the winter of our lives. How many of you are going to reach out to a senior and invite them to dinner or take them dinner? Take the family dinner to them. Yeah. Here's another, just a short comment on Facebook. It's a bit sad to witness the loneliness. Unfortunately, this is what it is. One has to adapt to make the most of the remaining years of one's life meaningful. I like reading a lot and don't miss much most of the time. That was just one comment. Yeah. You can't. Okay, that was just something I didn't want that to. I read another one earlier. I read another one earlier today about an elderly man who went to a restaurant on a Sunday during a Sunday rush time, and he had a dog with him. The dog had on an old faded service animal vest, and the old man sat down at the table, and he ordered 2 cups of coffee and a piece of cherry pie, and he took out a picture and put it on the table. And in the midst of his hands shaking and so forth, so on, he dropped the fork and it made such a noise. And the poor dog was so old, he had a hard time trying to get up, even when he was startled, because his legs and hips and stuff just were so badly deteriorated. And everybody in the restaurant started to look at the old man, and he just kind of put his hands over his face. And a young lady came and she sat down. She asked if she could sit down, and she picked up the fork, and she helped the dog get sturdy. And the old man shared with her a story, and he seemed so frail, she said, and broken, and just, yeah, real fragile. But the story was his wife had died about 5 years ago, and the dog was her service animal. And they used to like to come to this restaurant, and he was dressed really nice in a nice suit, just, I mean, shirt pressed and everything, just looking really nice. And the young lady asked if cherry pie was the wife's favorite, and he said yes, it was. And he went on to explain that because of the dog's deterioration in his hips and legs, that they were putting the dog down the next day. And he wanted to come to the restaurant and just have one more time with what he had left of his wife, her dog. And so she gave him a fork from another table, and she cut it up in small pieces so that he could manage it. But he was feeding the cherry pie to the dog underneath the table. I'm sitting here, I want to cry. So she sat and she talked with him for about an hour, and he shared stories of his wife and the dog, who they've had so many years. And he was approaching a different stage in his life now, because his wife had been gone 5 years, and now he has to put the dog down, which is the last thing that he had that belonged to her. And that reminds me of a story, not a story, a true happening to me that I experienced working with a lady who had, similar story, lost her spouse about 5 or 6 years ago to terminal cancer. She turned around and lost her mom within months after that. But during the time that her husband had cancer, they had 2 dogs. And she wasn't able to handle both dogs. So to give him comfort, she sacrificed her dog and put him down so that the husband could still have his dog during his days of sickness as he was going through his challenges. So what brought her into my place of work was his dog died. They had to put him down. And all the grief that she had been holding on to from her dog, from the husband's death, from the mother's death, she just lost it. She fell apart. She had been carrying all this grief for the past 6 or 7 years and not dealt with it. And it was so painful. And she didn't want to live. She said, I don't want to live anymore. I want to take these pills and go. She felt she had nothing else to live for. Yes, she had children who lived far away. But now she was alone in the home where she had so many memories of her husband and her 2 pets. And she didn't have a mom anymore. And she felt she had nothing. I say all this because we don't know what a person is going through. We don't know what a person has experienced. We don't know the depth of their hurt, their pain, their grief. I wish we would put these cell phones down and spend time with the seasoned people, because the wisdom that they have experienced over the decades, 7, 8, 9 decades, is priceless. So during this Christmas, Hanukkah, Advent, Kwanzaa, whatever you experiencing, take time out and go take a meal and sit down with a seasoned person. This is Brownwood. Happy holidays.